One thing that I saw that I thought was very interesting. Studies that show that male energy levels are at 30-year lows. If men won't even go to the doctor when their blood pressure's through the roof, their cholesterol's through the roof, their diabetes is uncontrolled, you think they're going to the doctor to say, "Hey, doc, my energy level is low. Like, I'm just feeling fatigued. I'm feeling tired." No. All right, so we are already in a system where men's health doesn't get the priority that it needs, and it's a two-sided coin. Men, we talk about this. Men ain't showing up to the doctors quite often, right? And if they do, it's again what 60% of the men are actually going to at least have one checkup, right? So we're losing a lot of men who aren't going to see the doctors whatsoever. And then when they do go to see the doctor, because this might be my only shot, right? This might be the only time I go see this guy in my office this year. We try to pile on everything. And quite often things that get missed include, mental health, right? Include, your regular checkups. But more importantly, it include just hormone related issues or concerns, right? Because, we're trying to get through our list, right? Because hopefully our appointment's 15 minutes. We're trying to get through our list of things we got to get to because we're trying to maximize like, hey, you know what? If I don't see this guy for another year, let me make sure I at least do everything that the checklist says I need to do. Okay. So we find ourselves, especially when we talk about, and especially during a month like this, where we talk about men's health, it's difficult to talk about men's health and not have the conversation about testosterone, right? I got a few blog posts about it. We'll make sure we'll put it in the show notes. But you got to have a conversation about testosterone because that is a big driver for a lot of things happening. So again, I'm yours truly, Dr. Barry Pierre, board certified internist, host of Medicine Mondays, as well as the author of Your Health, Your Choice, and Your Future. And the conversation of getting men's health has to include making sure that the testosterone and the energy level is where it needs to be, right? So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to, some signs and symptoms. We're going to give some strategies on how to make sure that, especially you as a patient, is taking advantage of the appointment that hopefully you are going to be making already in the works when it comes to getting your health together, right? So as always, y'all already know the routine. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. We want to make sure, we're keeping you guys engaged with what's going on. So first and foremost, let's talk about the aspect of the system, right? How's the system at hand kind of, got y'all and us falling through the cracks, right? Again, we hopefully have, an adequate time to talk when we do get y'all. Now, it's not guaranteed that we're going to get y'all in the office. We understand that. We understand that a lot of times there's some sexual dysfunction or, you got a family member that says, you better go. A lot of times it's not on your own accord. Okay, we'll address that. We'll take advantage of that. But once we got you here, we're still having problems of making sure we are closing the deal. And I think when it comes to testosterone levels and hormone levels in general, it's a conversation that I think men don't like having. Right. Men has this issue with machismo that is so ridiculous. And so imagine they won't go if their pressure's through the roof, their cholesterol's through the roof. So now you start telling them, hey, your hormones are out of whack. Men are a weird bunch. Men are a weird bunch when it comes to their health, especially those who are standoffish of the system. Because it's not like many of them have been wronged by the system, right? So I can understand if you've been wronged by the system. And you're like, all right, I'm going to stay away from that system because I've been wronged by the system. A lot of y'all have not been wronged by any system. You're just like, hey, I'm Superman and I don't want to have to even address what's going on over there. So I'm not going to address what's going on over there, right? Like a lot of y'all are weird from that standpoint, right? This was a question that, and I thought it was so wild, right? So remember, we talked about 60% of men will at least see the doctor once a year, right? Only 60% of men, right? Less than 25% are actually getting routinely checked on their hormone levels, right? So we're already missing about 40% of y'all. But with the 60% that we do get, only less than 25% of those are we actually making sure that their hormone levels are on point, right? And I will give our healthcare system some bail. I understand that, again, if I got to take this opportunity because I may not see this guy for another year, I gotta take this opportunity. I'm gonna make sure the blood pressure. I'm gonna make sure the big things that I know for a fact can kill you are addressed and taken care of. It's just the reality of priority of triage, and I gotta triage the situation because I don't know when's the next time I'm gonna see you. I just don't. So I got to triage this situation and say, let me take advantage of all the things I can take advantage of right now while I got you. Right. And we're going to talk about some symptoms, but one thing that I saw that I thought was very interesting. The studies that show that male energy levels are at 30-year lows. If men won't even go to the doctor when, you know what, their blood pressure's through the roof, the cholesterol's through the roof, the diabetes is uncontrolled, you think they're going to the doctor to say, hey, doc, my energy level is low? Like, I'm just feeling fatigued, I'm feeling tired. No. So imagine that we're still able to get enough data to show that, like, in a 30-year span, the energy levels are like on the ground, right? On underground for the most part. That is how significant this issue has been. And a lot of times when we talk about hormone and testosterone, a lot of it, in fact, when I was a outpatient attending, I think it was my first year out of residency, I was taking care. A patient comes in, you know, Jim, I could tell Jim buff guy, goes to the gym 5 days a week, you know, whatever. I could tell that. He knew just as much about his hormone levels than I'm probably learning when I was taking endocrinology, because in that world, like, their hormone levels got to be on point, right? Like, if they want to build as much muscle and they want to have a less fat, like, their hormone levels got to be on point. He was giving me the game on some hormone, and I remember seeing his numbers, right? And again, this was before I didn't realize that bodybuilders will take, like, you know, estrogen, you know, related things, all these things to help build, because I guess it helps build muscle mass and everything. I didn't even realize it. And I'm getting back some of these numbers. We're going to talk about some numbers that you should get for your, you know, your hormone balance, right? I'm getting back some of these numbers. These numbers were the highest I've ever seen ever. I like, hold on, your testosterone level can go that high? Like, why is your liver functioning? Like, I was just shocked. I was shocked when it was coming to some of these numbers. But again, those are the people who tend to be more in tune with making sure that their hormone balance, not the everyday Joe Blow who is irritable, who's fatigued, who's been dealing with weight gain and all this problems, and they don't even recognize why until we do our homework and realize, like, hey, you know what? Your energy levels that are, you know, in the trash can, like, what about your testosterone? Like, have you checked that? And again, right, we're in this real men pandemic, right, epidemic, right, who like, hey, I know what real men do, and real men don't talk about being tired. They don't talk about their hormone levels. It's just something that they don't do, right? So we have to constantly educate and break through these levels of resistance. And again, like I said, I talk about my patient, right? We have to break through those levels of resistance to get to that other side to really kind of help the patient in front of us, right? So let's talk about this aspect of what we're seeing, right? Like, so what are we seeing in the reality in the office? What are we seeing in the clinic, but in the real world, right? Men aren't getting testosterone levels. They're not really getting any levels, right? They typically will get, like, the standard blood work to check for anemia and blood sugar, stuff like that. But they're not asking the right questions on both sides, right? The doctor isn't asking the right questions because they don't got no time. The patient isn't asking the right questions or providing the right history, because a lot of times, especially, and I know in medicine, it can seem like we are like these masterful wizards when I talk about physicians, right? But what I always say is that we're wizards because you guys are giving us the ingredients, right? You guys are giving us ingredients to know which questions to ask and which answers to look for. But if you don't give us the ingredients, we don't know which questions, we don't know which routes to go. So when we come in and we're asking you guys questions and you don't, like, you're either standoffish, you're either, you know, non-committal, you're just not like, no, everything's fine. Guess what? I can't even look down the route of you having a hormone imbalance because you told me everything was fine. You didn't tell me that you've been fatigued. You didn't tell me that your energy levels in the trash. You didn't tell me that you have all these bad mood changes and you're very irritable and you don't know why. You don't tell me any of these things, right? And so I don't know to look. So that's what tends to happen. And when we think about, right, and there's some other hormones, like I said, we'll talk about it. When we think about, like, oh, I got my blood work, right? A lot of us, right, and I say us, right? And I always say us because it's so funny because obviously being a physician and a patient, I always forget that, like, oh, I'm on the other side as well too, right? So when I say us, I'm talking about patients, right? So a lot of patients think that when we get blood work, like, oh, they test for everything. And trust me, I can assure you, they do not test for everything. Because one, right? Again, this is just more of a business conversation, right? That we're about to have. If you don't say the right things, I can't order the right test because guess what? Your insurance won't pay for it, right? That's just reality. And I'm sure you don't want a bill from your insurance company because hey, your doctor ordered a test that wasn't covered, right? So and it wasn't covered because you didn't say the right things. It wasn't covered because you didn't do what you needed to do. So understand, right? It kind of goes in either direction when we were thinking about the labs that your doctor orders, right? So now we're back to the regular schedule program. Just because your doctor orders labs, they typically aren't ordering every single lab, and we have to kind of understand that, like, for your doctor to order the right labs, right? And we'll talk about some of the right labs. For your doctor to order the right labs, you got to give him the right information to order it. So that's why I say it's one of those things where you got to provide the appropriate history so your doctor can do what they need to do, right? So let's talk about some strategies, right? When we get to that when we pass that waiting room, when we get into that back room and we're just waiting for our turn, like the music is coming on, we're waiting for our turn to be seen. We got to know exactly, hey, what I need to do, right? So understand these are some symptoms that I always think is important. Energy fluctuations, up down fluctuations, regardless of the situation. Not as motivated. When you're not as motivated to do what you love doing, because I'm not talking about the motivation when you're doing something that you have to do. Like, oh, I gotta go to work. No, if it's something that you love doing, but you just don't find your motivation to be there either, definitely something we need to think about. Obviously, the big one is erectile dysfunction, but we've gotten so good, and I think, and it's weird because it's so good, but it is a problem. Clearly, we've gotten so good as far as like being able to just treat the erectile dysfunction that we don't typically find out why you have it in the first place. So we don't. It's not uncommon to get the treatment because we know, hey, I gotta prescribe you this medication. In fact, you are literally coming for this medication, right? You are coming to the doctor's office specifically to say, hey, where can I get my, my blank and my blank, right? We won't mention them because they don't pay me nothing, right? So no point in giving them free advertisement, right? But y'all know the ED medications, right? I don't have to say it. So we won't go and get these medications. Like we're coming to the doctor's office specifically for that. But we don't want to know, like, why do I need it in the first place? I'm 35 years old. I'm 40 years old. Why do I need this medication in the first place, right? So you're like not getting that, right? ED, weight gain, muscle loss as well as a big one too, right? So again, you're working out, but like the muscles ain't happening, right? And this is why going back to my gym rat folks, this is why they are experts when it comes to this, because they know I can't look the best physique that I need to look if my hormone levels are out of whack. Like, so they don't play that. They understand what they got to do to get their hormone levels where it needs to get to. You don't understand it because you never even thought you had some hormone imbalances in the first place. My gym rat folks, especially those super buff guys, I'm not saying all of them do it, but those super buff guys, that like they don't play that game. And I always say, right, so these are some of the typical levels that I will always recommend getting: testosterone level, total testosterone, free testosterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, thyroid hormone, vitamin D, right? These are just, again, this is a nice little panel, right? And that some of these labs will actually have like you could like check off, like it'll be like, sexual hormone panel or something like that. And it just pulls up all of these labs here, right? So these are just some of the common ones that we should get just to have a good overview, right? You get those, you have the picture, right? Some people get estrogen levels as well too, right? Especially those who take exogenous like medication, they want to know where their estrogen level is and where it needs to fluctuate at, right? So like understand. Big thing for us, right, is making sure you're sleeping well, making sure you're eating, good foods, reducing your alcohol intake, right? These are just strategies that you can take when you're trying to fight this fight against low testosterone levels and having low energy levels, right? So this, again, this is what we talk about. You know and understand what's going on, right? You get your numbers, know your numbers, right? And then we take action upon those numbers, right? So this is the action stage, right? Supplements, what can I say about supplements? I think what tends to happen, especially with supplements in this industry, supplements, I know it's a $1 billion industry. I know it. but quite often we find ourselves, because it's a billion-dollar industry, it's not as regulated as like your regular medications. You'll have 100 companies with testosterone boosting, you know, berries and fruits and pills and all these things here. And this is one where you really have to do due diligence on it. I'll put a link to my supplements page, where like I said, you could trust that testosterone supplement than anything else, right? But like, just be careful of what you get, right? Vitamin D, right? Your zinc. Again, these are just hormone issues that we're looking for to make sure that if it's low, you gotta replenish it. Because a lot of us like say, oh, you know what, my testosterone level is low, but my vitamin D level is low as well too. And you may want to only replace the testosterone, not recognizing that, oh, vitamin D has a significant portion in my energy and everything else. Let me make sure those is topped off as well too. So, and big thing is just making sure when you need medications. When do you need a medication? And this is where I say, you know what? Don't listen to social media that tells you need a medication just because. Don't listen to some random person's testimonial. Make sure you know your numbers and you have that conversation with your provider so you guys can know, is medication going to be right for you, right? Not just like, oh, I think it's my low T. No, is medication going to be right for you? What is the appropriate medication that's going to be available for you? I think that is where that's where it has to be, right? So, and of course, y'all know I always say, don't listen to social media. Go get you a good provider that can like help you and get you to the game. Because again, and I'm not saying don't go to the internet, because I want to make sure I'm making that clear, right? Because I think a lot of times when y'all hear me rail against social media, it's not all social media. I understand that the internet is extremely important. I understand how important the internet is in getting our health together, right? Like, especially in this day and age where we have these AI folks, right? Who, you have the chat GPTs, your Geminis, your Claudes, you have all these AI that, can populate information and aggregate good information. Perplexity is another one that I actually love. Can get good information for you, but you have to understand, hey, when I get the information, what do I do with it? And a lot of y'all will get the information, don't know what to do with it. And especially now, I know that I think if you put anything medically related in any of these AIs, they're automatically throwing a disclaimer on it, which means they probably got sued. Which that's what typically happens. They've been throwing all of this medical, stuff in there, and someone sued them because, hey, I listened to my chat GPT. Like, what do you mean I need cancer medication, right? I'm just gonna go with this, nutritious cocktail that ChatGPT gave me, right? I'm not saying ChatGPT or Gemini or anybody did that. I'm just saying that's usually what happens when you have to have a medical disclaimer, right? Somebody took it like they were the new doctor and then kept it running, right? Which we're going to have a conversation in a later episode. I don't know when. We're going to have a conversation about, AI, my thoughts on AI in regards to replacing a doctor, right? I've had conversation about that before, but every time I get new updated information on what the AIs can do, I say, I start looking a little bit more side eye, because again, it's all it's going to take is for patients to be comfortable enough with that situation to go down. And then we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations with some professionals, right? I don't think it's close, but I think you'd be naive not to like recognize it, right? But again, back to the men, lock in, back to the men. And so we're talking about testosterone, we're talking about energy, and we're talking about its importance. Really, just hormone balance is important in overall men's health. Right. Again, we can't be balanced if we're not focusing on our blood pressure and our diabetes and our cholesterol and our mental health. But you definitely sure cannot be balanced if your hormones are out of whack as well, too. Right. So it becomes this thing where men's health is so encompassing. And that's why we need y'all in the office more often. Or just come once. Just like again, 40% of y'all are not seeing us. 40% of y'all are saying, I am going to just go off vibes until I can't go off vibes anymore. I don't want y'all going off vibes. I want y'all getting y'all healthcare together. And you can't do that unless you come to see us, right? Unless you come to see your doctor and get your checkup and get your numbers like you're supposed to get your numbers. Like I said, make sure you ask your doctor, say, hey, doc, are you checking my hormones? Right. This month is about us, right? So if you're about to schedule your next appointment, make sure you say, hey, doc, are you checking my hormones? Am my testosterone looking good? What is my make sure your doctor is aware that is something you're concerned about, so then they can look for it and test it, right? Because again, if you don't tell us to be concerned about it, guess what? We not going to be concerned about it. If you want us to be concerned about it, you better tell us it's something like again, you better tell us it's something that we need to do, right? If you don't tell us to do it, we ain't gonna do it, right? So again, I'm here truly, Dr. Barry Pierre, host of Medicine Mondays. You guys have a great evening, and I'm gonna see you guys next week.